Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the garden. Well, we're not really in the garden, but today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I went about starting a donation garden. I get this question on a somewhat frequent basis, so I figured why not answer it. So basically, if you watch this channel, people are always like, well, what do you do with the flowers? Why are you growing flowers? What do you do with them? And the answer to that simply is it's a donation garden. Now, I realize that a lot of people want to start growing flowers to make a profit, and that's fair. Originally when I did start growing flowers, I would have loved for it to be like, yes, I can, sell these bouquets and everything. It's great. But the fact of the matter is, it quickly became a reality that in my small backyard, that's just not something that's possible. Even though I can produce a lot of flowers in my small backyard, having large numbers of flowers consistently throughout the entire season was very difficult, especially when, selling to a florist or for events or things like that. So what I ended up doing is growing the flowers and picking them and giving them away. And of course you can give them away to various locations. We'll get to that a little bit later. But basically what has happened is my yard has turned into a not-for-profit miniature flower farm, I guess. And of course you can do the same thing with food. It just depends on, who you are and what you want to do. And so I thought I would go through and talk a little bit about how this came to be. Now, to get started, obviously you wanted to decide what you want to grow. For me, I had originally started growing food. Originally, I am very much a vegetable gardener, and that's how I started gardening, is, learning to grow my own food and everything. Well, the season after I started winter sowing, I had a very, very good year. I had a very successful garden. And the fact of the matter was, no matter how much I gave my produce, my tomatoes and my lettuce away to family and friends, I simply had tons of it left. So what I basically did is I started calling up my local food pantries, and I ended up calling over 10 local food pantries to donate these excess vegetables that I had, lettuce and vegetables and pumpkins and all kinds of things that I had. And basically what happened is that every single one of them told me that they didn't want them. And, even a few of them said, oh no, we only accept food from our list of certain growers, XYZ and everything. And I was just so disheartened. I had all this extra food, and, obviously food shortages are a problem. There are people hungry. There's no shortage of people who are hungry, and no one would take this food. I was so mad. So, lesson learned. But what ended up happening is I ended up just, starting to grow more flowers instead, to where I would balance it out with enough food to grow for myself and for my friends and family and everything, and the rest would be flowers. Over time, the garden became all flowers, as you guys now see. But I think that story really emphasizes how important the planning stage of starting a donation garden is, because before you even start growing anything, it's important to know where you can actually donate the things that you're growing, and this includes food or flowers or whichever you choose to do. You also need to kind of take into account how big your growing space is. You have to set realistic expectations. Of course, it would be great to be able to grow 100 pounds of tomatoes, but if you have a small backyard or only a few potted containers, it's not going to be possible. You also want to make sure that it's going to be something that you are able to manage, because, let's face it, with gardening, there's a lot of stuff to do, from tilling if you till, amending the soil and planting and transplanting and cutting and weeding and watering. By the time we get to the point where we're actually even able to harvest, we've already invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and even a lot of money. So it really is important to have realistic expectations when you kind of set your goal for the season and set out to kind of make that a reality. And going back to finding organizations to work with, while it's nice to, think, oh, I can give it to my neighbors, I can give it to whoever, I think it's really nice to work with organizations that already exist. So a lot of times you can contact local food pantries, as I already mentioned, if you're growing food, Or what for me was I set out and I looked for an organization that already donated flowers. And what they do is they collect flowers from florists or from grocery stores that didn't get sold, or from events, weddings. People donate their flowers. And then what the group does that I work with is they rearrange the flowers and make them into new vases and distribute them to nursing homes and all kinds of different places. And I was so glad to find that there was already an organization near me that did that. Because let's face it, as I've already mentioned, you know, working the soil and planting the seeds and harvesting and everything like that is already a lot of work. So if you wanted to plan a donation garden for cut flowers, just as this one has kind of turned into, it turns into even more work when you factor in, you know, arranging the flowers and then delivering the flowers to various other locations. It really becomes quite an undertaking, especially if you're someone who has a full-time job and other responsibilities that you have to tend to. Another reason that working with established organizations is also good is they can usually give you a good amount of guidance in terms of things like if you need some kind of insurance to cover your donations, or if, you know, they're covered, and all kinds of different kind of legal things like that, which is really, really helpful. If you're going to be doing this on your own, you are going to need to be looking into the legal side of things. And of course, there are options for that, but that's going just to take a lot more research to find out what you're able to do and how you're able to help with your donations and things like that. You're also going to have to consider the investment of your project. I mean, let's face it, while it would be nice to grow an entire field of flowers to donate, you are going to have to make some investment, from, you know, preparing the growing beds to buying the seeds and bulbs. It's going to take some money to get the donation garden off the ground. And that's when kind of partnering up with other people can be really, really helpful. I know 100% for me, the biggest impact in my little donation garden has been you guys. Just by watching these videos, you guys help the channel so incredibly much in helping me buy flowers and bulbs and different things that we can grow out. And hopefully in return, I can continue to grow those and show you guys how those grow and give growing tips and things like that. Hopefully I can continue in that. But another project that I did in order to raise money, especially when I first got started, before anybody followed me on Instagram or followed me here, what I did was I was selling handmade soaps. So I started selling handmade soaps and eventually started selling wax melts as well. That was really the first kind of little bit of income that I was able to dedicate towards the donation garden budget. Other ways to kind of balance your budget and get the most out of what you have to work with: partnering with seed companies. I know the very first donation garden that I did, I reached out to some seed companies, and a lot of them had no trouble getting back to me and like, yeah, we can totally donate to you. Baker Creek, our very first seed garden here for donation that we grew from seed, Baker Creek actually sent me a package of seeds for the donation garden that I was able to grow out and donate the flowers from those, which is absolutely amazing. Again, don't be afraid to reach out to established companies and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested in helping? And more times than not, I think you'd be surprised with the generosity of people and everybody who's just looking to do something good out there through gardening, which I think is awesome. Also, another note to make: you want to make sure you're keeping very thorough records of everything that you donate. I know this has helped specifically for me into determining which flowers have been the most productive and which flowers I definitely want to grow again, and which ones, didn't really earn their keep in terms of donations. And in addition, keeping track of the actual quantity of them, the actual number of stems. I do very bad at this, but I'm getting much better. Keeping track of the number of stems, as well as the overall value of what you're actually donating, so you can kind of get a better grasp at how things are growing and how things are progressing from one season to the next. Last but certainly not least, don't be afraid to just share what you're doing on the internet and let people know what you're doing, and encourage people to get involved and see if they want to grow some flowers or help out in some way. Because even one little flower bouquet can make such a big difference. And that's something that I really, really, truly believe. Because I know if somebody gives me flowers, it automatically brightens my day. And I feel especially that can be really, really needed sometimes, especially when you're in a really, really dark place. That's really about it for this video. I hope that it was helpful. I know it wasn't just like a super great outlined point. I'm not really good at making videos that are kind of a list like this, just because by nature I'm not a very organized person, but hopefully there were some kind of helpful hints in there that might be a little bit useful if you are considering growing your own donation garden. Feel free to ask any questions that you have down in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer them. As always, I'm always learning from you guys, and it's so fun to read the comments. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. I would love to have you. We're making new gardening videos all the time. Usually it's cut flowers, but it might be vegetables or a DIY project. Really never know what I'm going to post next, so be sure to subscribe if you liked it. As always, the links to our Patreon and to our blog and everything else is down in the description below. If you want to check that out, get some more information about the things that we're growing. Everyone is welcome here in our little gardening community. Be sure to check us out on Instagram if you would like to, at Freshcutky. Lots of posts and stuff there. And I hope you're having such an incredible day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.